Yes, folks, it's John G. Sutton. Tales from the Jails. Right, today I'm going to talk a little bit about Gary Glitter being recalled to prison. And they reckon he's going to die in there now because they're going to hold him there because he's obviously not. He's been breaching the regulations. He had certain stipulations that he wouldn't try and research for, I don't know what, pornographic or things to do with child abuse on the internet, and he's been apparently discovered that he's been searching the dark web, whatever that may be, and searching for indecent images of children. You see, the thing is, he's a full-blown paedophile, and he doesn't see anything wrong with it. He will think that the people who are objecting to this, they're wrong, because it's the way that they reason. And I've spoken to many of these offenders, because they are offenders against the rules of society, because society doesn't allow you to do that. And they argue that children as young as 9 or 10 are fully sexualized, and that they want to take part in sexual activities with older men or older women, as the case may be. And of course that's against the law in this country, and you get in prison for it. I mean, don't forget, Paul Gad, or Gary Glitter as he is known, has been imprisoned in Cambodia. He did 2.5 years in prison in Vietnam. He's been imprisoned in 1999 when he took his computer, which had broken down, by the way. He took his computer for repair into Curry's, I believe it was, or PC World or something like that. And when they started to repair it, they checked on they checked all his drives, and on his hard drive were, in the picture files, were 4,000 indecent images of children being abused. And Gary Glitter, Paul Gad, managed to get himself in prison for that. He was very popular, at one stage, around about the early 90s. He was touring. He always used to come to I think it's the Guildhall at Preston, near where I live. And he used to sell it out all the time, dancing around in his silver suit, and I'm the leader of the gang, I am. Do you want to be in my gang? Well, thank you very much, Gary Glitter, but no thanks. I definitely don't, because I keep my trousers on and keep out of that. Anyway, yeah, so he's back in prison. Disgraceful, really. I mean, he only lasted a month. You see, as I said, I've worked with, locked them up, numerous offenders. I'll tell you a little story about Gary Glitter. One of my colleagues in the publishing industry was going to release an album, and he paid quite a bit of money for this, like a few £100,000, and he printed all the albums up, maybe, I don't know, 20,000-30,000 albums, and he booked the advertising on network television, paid for that, a few £100,000, and he's ready to go. And he went into his office one day, and his assistant says to him, "You better read this." He said, "You're not going to like it." And he put a copy of the Sun newspaper on his desk, and on the headlines it was Gary Glitter, pervert, and that's when he'd been arrested for the 4,000 indecent images, and all the 40,000 albums that he'd pressed up were of Gary Glitter's greatest hits. Nobody would buy them. The shops wouldn't sell them. They wouldn't stock them. He had to pay for the advertising because he'd booked it, Said it damn near ruined him. These things happen, but the only way to make things happen is to do things, let me tell you that. And if you don't do things, then you're just drifting along in a dream. Yeah, they talk about living the American dream, don't they? The only problem is you've got to be wide awake to do that. You can't sleepwalk into that. The American dream, success, you know, big house, fancy car, beautiful wife, 2 kids, that's the American dream kind of thing, isn't it? I'm living in the Lancashire dream. Bungalow, wife, kids grown up, left home, 1 dog, and a bad-tempered old grumps, which is me, by the way. Well, that's what they tell me. I don't think I'm bad-tempered. Anyway, pornographic stuff. He's back inside. Paul Gadd in there, in the jails, under lock and key. Thing is, when you're in there, you get all the case files. You know, if you're appealing your case, he's undoubtedly going to appeal, isn't he? But they get to share all the case files, and that includes all the pornographic images that they bring. So you can imagine what's going round. Saw that at Strangeways numerous times. So that's what's happening with Paul Gadd. It's not far off now. We're going to be hearing from the Bronson parole. He should get out, shouldn't he? I mean, who has he really hurt? Anyway, perverts in society. I dealt with some who were not prisoners, but were staff at Wormwood Scrubs. And I'm now going to play you a little extract from my book, HMP Manchester Prison Officer, the Audible book. This is what happened when I reported one of the governors for having sexual relations with a Category A inmate. Are you sitting comfortably? You can get this on Amazon, by the way. The actor reading the book is called Alan Turton. He was in Soldier and Brookside and loads of stuff like that. But he actually does express the words very well, I think. Here we are.
If I had the evidence, and I really had to do something about it. Having locked the Cat A back in his cell, I returned to the Censors Unit and collected his letter files along with the letter from the member of the House of Lords. I advised the senior officer of the unit that I was going to see the wing principal officer. This I did, and he was not exactly delighted to hear what I had to say. "Put it in writing and take it to the CO1, he said. I was not looking forward to meeting the man mountain again, and I felt certain he would not be best pleased to see me. It took perhaps 15 minutes to write the statement, and so, with this in my hand and a copy in my pocket, I went into the main office and knocked on the door of the number 1 chief officer. "Come in," boomed his big voice, and as I walked through the door, I could see he'd been expecting me, as standing beside him was HMP Wormwood Scrubs Head of Security, Principal Officer Mr. S. Handing my statement to the CO1, I kept the Cat A letter file and the incoming letter to one side. I could see that the 2 men were perusing my statement carefully, and both were giving me darkly suspicious glances. "You can prove this, can you, Mr. Sutton?" said the security PO. At this point, I produced the Cat A letter file and the letter from the member of the House of Lords, which had clearly been sent in as a response to a letter that had not, according to the letter file, been sent out in accordance with the regulations. I then gilded the lily a little by explaining that under the Prison Act 1952, Section 41, any person who, contrary to the regulations of a prison, conveys a letter or any other thing into or out of the prison or to a prisoner commits an offence. For a brief moment, I kept the Cat A letter file and the incoming letter to one side. I could see that the 2 men were perusing my statement carefully, and both were giving me darkly suspicious glances. "You can prove this, can you, Mr. Sutton?" said the security PO.
There you go. That's what happened. They didn't want to know. And what they did was call the police in. But they didn't call the police in to investigate the governor. They called the police in to investigate me. How about that? Anyway, tales from the jails.